Hello, I'm Dr. Pepper, aka Trey, and here we go. We're going to make basically this helmet right here. So I'm going to show you how to make your own um, textures and everything for Deadside. So let's go ahead and get started. So first things first, when we go into our editor, in my case, I have other mods that do the same thing, which is replacing helmet stuff. So we're going to go ahead up here, up to this enable PIE mods, and we're going to shut off the helmet. If you got other helmet mods that replace the same helmet stuff, you're going to want to turn that off. That way then it doesn't conflict. I'll demonstrate that later because I already got my helmet mod, and then this is going to be our tutorial one. So I've already set up the project for this, but I'll go through that anyway. So when you're going to create one, you're going to create mod, then you're going to name it some shit here, and then you're going to put your author name here and some description here, right? So we're not going to worry about that because I've already created the project, and we've got it right here, helmet tutorial. Okay. So to get started on this, we're going to need to go into blueprints. First thing we're going to need is the item that we're going to be changing. So we're going to go in items, wearable, and then we're going to go into helmets. We're going to take this lovely helmet right here. We're going to highlight it, Control C, scroll down to our project right here, click inside this window, Control V. We copy and pasted that. Okay, so now we've got the basic blueprint for our helmet. Now we're going to go ahead in here, and we're going to need to collect all the textures and stuff we're going to need, icons, whatnot, for this helmet. So first thing we're going to do is right here, we've got this window popped up over here that shows this skins and the materials. So these are our materials. This is going to be our icon that's going to show up in the menus. First thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and highlight this, and we're going to find our texture. We're also going to need the glass, so we're going to do that while we're in here. I'll show you what that is. You could also do these individually, but I'm going to do them both at once just for the sake of speed. So we're going to close that down. We've got our helmet right here. That's the helmet texture, and this is the glass texture. So we'll go ahead and click that. We've got it highlighted, which it'll highlight it for you, so that'll already be highlighted. Then we'll control and click on this, and then we'll Control C, go down to our projects right here, click in this window, Control V, and that'll paste it. Good to go. Next, we're going to need to get our sprite for the helmet so it shows up in the menus correctly. So we're going to go ahead and get that. We've got it highlighted, Control C, go ahead down here, tutorial, and Control V, and we've got that. Next, we're going to need to get our textures themselves for this stuff. So we're going to need to go in here, and we're going to need to highlight this, and again, we've got the glass right there. We're going to need that for our other object, so we can close this down now. We'll Control click on that, and then we'll Control V, or Control C, don't Control V, Control C, and then go in here, click, Control V, and that'll paste, and there we go. Now we've gotten all the associated stuff that we need for that. The only thing we're going to need now is the sprite sheet. Now we're going to create our own sprite. We're not going to use a sprite sheet, so I'll show you how to do that. So don't worry about this, but if you wanted to do a sprite sheet, you could. It's fidgety, it's a pain in the ass. You know, XY coordinates and all that stuff for where the sprite is on the tile sheet. Yeah, forget that. We're not going to do that. So, but yeah, that's what they do in the game. So I just thought I'd mention it. We're not going to do that though. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and export this. So we're going to go ahead and go to Asset Actions, and we're going to go to Export. And we're going to put this in here somewhere. And we're going to name this Tut, and just save it. And make sure you rename all this stuff. So first things first, that's what we should have did first, but we're going to go ahead and just name this Tut. The same with this. do the same thing with this. And make sure that all these have that same name, same naming convention. Just makes it easier. You can rename these to whatever you like. You don't have to just leave the names default and do an / something, but for the sake of this tutorial, that's what I'm going to do because it'll make it quicker. Okay, so let's say you're going to want to add an admin menu. So we'll do that here in a second, but let's go ahead and export our other texture. So we're going to go ahead and do the same thing we did before. Right click, Asset Actions, go down to Export, and then we're going to export it into our folder here. I got mine in the Pictures folder. You can put yours wherever you like. Okay, so I've exported that. Now I've got these two textures that I'm going to need later. Now for this, like I said, we're going to make one of those later, and I'll show you how to do that. But next thing we're going to do real quick is we're going to collect the other files that we need, which is going to be for our admin menu. So if we go up here into this little path tab up here, we're just going to type in admin. And then you'll see this server admin. And here we're going to take this and one of these files. It doesn't matter which one. You could take whichever one you want. So we got that highlighted. Control click one of these. Doesn't matter which one, like I said. Control C. And then we'll clear this out and we'll scroll down to our project and then we'll go over here, click in there, Control V. Now we've got ourselves a copy of this stuff and the same principle applies. We're going to go ahead in here and we're going to rename this to Tut, and the same with our table. And I will get to explaining all this stuff here in a little bit. Okay, so there we go. We've got all that set up. Now we're going to go ahead into our images and we're going to start editing our images. So we need our tutorial glass and we need our tutorial texture. So we're going to go ahead and click this and open it up in paint.net. This tutorial is using paint.net. You can use Photoshop, GIMP, whatever you're comfortable with. We're not going to make anything real fancy, but for something that's easy, user-friendly, free, you know, GIMP's free too, but you know, you don't need the power of like Photoshop for paint.net. It's pretty simple to get used to. It's real user friendly. There's not a lot of shit to fuck with that can confuse the hell out of you. So that's what we're using for this tutorial. But go ahead and use whatever you are more comfortable with. So we've got our image opened up and we want to change this, right? So first thing we're going to do over here is we're going to add a layer. We're going to go to this layer here. We're just going to hide the other one for now. And I'm going to just paint this whole thing black. You could do whatever you want. You can make it whatever base color you want. You can use whatever secondary color you want. That's totally up to you. And then we're going to switch colors. Oh, whoops, not yet. We're going to select our brush first. Then switch colors because it'll switch what you already did there. And you don't want that. So we're going to set this color the way we want it. And we need to make sure that we're on the color we want. So we got to switch that. And we're going to set this. Now, you can make this a little bit transparent or whatever. I had it a little bit transparent in the last tutorial that I made that I kind of decided to redo. So anyway, we're not worried about that. Now we're just going to do a little painting here. And this ain't going to be fancy. This ain't going to be no like fucking, you know, Van Gogh shit. But we're just going to, yeah, lovely. Look at that. You know, I should become a real artist, huh? Yeah. With my little kindergarten scribbles. Okay. But we don't care about that because what we're going to do is we're going to go up here to this effects, distort, and dense. And as you see now, it looks more like something that we're trying to go for here, which is like a kind of moldy-ish kind of thing. And you could adjust this up and down to change like how you want it to look. I think that looks pretty good right there. And we're just going to go ahead and say that that's okay. And then we're going to go over here to the layers tab, go down to layer properties, and we're going to set this to 200. So set that to 200. That's what I do. You can fidget around with that and do what you like, but that seems to be pretty good for an overlay. And as you'll see, it's overlaying that over our base texture. So this will be all over the helmet. Now, each of these is an individual section of the helmet. So, like, this is the side view of where the glass panel goes, right here, this whole section here. This is a front view of it. And this is, I believe, the base helmet itself. This is, like, the dome area. And, yeah, so all these are individual pieces of the helmet. So you can get as fancy as you want with, like, putting stuff how you want it on the helmet. But that's out of the scope of this tutorial. This is just showing you a quick, simple, dirty way to do this so you could get stuff working. Then you could get as fancy with your texturing as you want on your own. So anyway, I think we're good here. What we're going to do is we're going to go over here to File, Save As, and we're going to make sure this is saved as a TGA. And then we're going to /mildew, or we'll just do mold. It doesn't matter. I already have a moldy, so we'll just do mold. Okay, and then flatten, and yeah, okay. So that's good. Now, we're going to go over here to our pictures again, and we're going to open up the glass. And for this, we're going to zoom in a little bit so it's a little easier to see. And for this, we're going to turn down, we want this color. We want to turn down that one. We want it to be somewhat transparent, okay, because it's going over glass. So we're just going to do, oh, whoops. No, we're not going to do that. We're going to add a layer first, again. So we're going to work on that layer. So we're just going to get our Van Gogh on real quick, you know, or whatever artist you prefer, doesn't really matter. You get the picture, you know, you get the idea, that kind of thing. And we're not going to get real fancy with this either. Okay. Good enough. Alright. So now we're going to go up here to the same thing, effect, dense. And then we're just going to tweak this how we like it till it looks kind of, you know, something that we are going for. And you could turn up the turbulence, you know, but you want to adjust it to where it kind of looks like what you're going for, at least. So, you know, something like that. And you could do something like that. And I think that looks good. So we're going to go ahead and do the same thing we did before with the other texture. We're going to go ahead and File, Save As, and then we're going to select the TGA because that's what the game uses. And then we're going to /mold. Okay. That's going to be our texture. Make sure you flatten, do not cancel this action. You want to flatten it because what that does is it takes the two layers and it basically smushes them together into one. So that's what you want. Alright, so we got those done. Now we could go ahead and drag these in. So we've got our mold and we've got our mold, and we'll drag those in. Again, you could do the same thing here that I told you in the editor. You could do control click and you could just drag them both in, but we've already got them in there. So yeah, or you could do it individually like I just did. Now we're going to go ahead and set up our materials. We'll go in here. We're going to change this to our new material, tutorial mold, and save, and okay. And for this, we're going to do tutorial mold for the glass, and we're going to need to check this because if you look at this, you can hardly see it. So to fix that, what we're going to do is change its base color. We're going to take the base color here and we're just going to tone it down to where it's more white, and that will fix that to where it's more visible. So This is how I fix it. I change all of that to a more white and then change that transparency. And there we go. And that should be good to go. You could also mess with this slider if you need to, but yeah, it really just messes with that. So yeah, we're going to go ahead with that. That should be fine. It should be viewable in game. Save that. Close it. So we've got both of our materials. Make sure we've saved them. Now that we've set them up with our textures. So yeah, we no longer need these two because these were our base textures. So we could go ahead, control click, and just delete those. We don't need them. So there we go. Now our project files are cleaned up. Alright, so now we've got our moldy textures. Now we could go ahead and get our image for our assault helmet. So this is going to be for our sprite. So what we're going to do for that is we're going to go in here, and if we click this little window here, double click that, you'll get a viewport of this object. So you can go ahead and move around in here and get yourself lined up. Now what I'd recommend doing is making sure that the helmet is in view of, you can't see that background, right? You don't want that in the background, and you'll see why in a minute. So we're going to get the helmet in view. And first thing we're going to want to do is we're going to want our tutorial textures. We're going to want our mold ones. So this is the ones that we just made. And we're going to want the same thing for the glass. So we'll just type in tut and we'll find our glass, and there we go. Now you can see what it's going to look like in game there, or get an idea at least. And then we'll just try to adjust the camera like to something that you like, you know, so it's visible. Now what we'll do is we'll take we'll use the snipping tool. So press the print screen button on your keyboard and you'll have this pop up here, and it'll pop up the snipping tool, and you can select the area that you want, and there we go. We've selected just the just around the helmet. That's all you want, just around the helmet. And then we'll take that and we'll open our pictures folder, and we'll right click and paste, and that'll paste that image because it copies the image to the clipboard. So now we're going to make our icon. So we're going to go ahead and right click on that, and then we're going to go up to open with, and then we're going to go to paint.net in my case. If you're using Photoshop, you could use that, whatever. You know, whatever floats your boat, I guess. So now we're going to use this magic wand tool here, and we're going to select this background. So you want to make sure that it's selecting the background, and as you can see, it's going around the outline of my helmet. So all of the helmet is in there. If for whatever reason part of your helmet's in there, you can adjust this turbulence up here, and as you can see, it'll start selecting more stuff or selecting less stuff. Yeah, so we're going to leave that at 50%, which is what the default is, and that typically works unless you got something gray like the background. Then you're going to have some trouble. So that's when you're going to probably need to figure out a different method, or like figure out how to change the color of the background in the viewport. But for now, we're not using something like that, so this is real easy. Now we've selected that, we just hit the delete key, and that'll make this transparent. Now, we do not need this saved or anything yet, but leave it open and go over here, click new, and we need an 80 by 60. That's the size of the icon for the helmet. Now some objects have 100 by 100 and 80 by 60, so there's two different icons, and that one of them I believe is for when it's in loot boxes and the trader menu, and the other one is for just your menu, like your player menu, and like on the ground. I believe, I'm not 100% sure, but it does have two, and if it has two, then you're going to do the same thing for both. You're going to do basically what we're doing here. So we're going to go in here, we're going to create this new image. We're going to rectangle select all of it, and we're just going to delete to make it a transparent background. Next, we're going to go over here, rectangle select this entire thing. Control C, go back to this image, Control V. Now, you'll see this menu pop up. Always select keep canvas size. So keep canvas size. Drag this corner down until it matches up closely with this box. And then what we'll do is we'll zoom in. That way we can get this a little bit better. And what we could do here is if you feel like it looks smashed or whatever, you could like drag it out more. And then this is where you'd want to grab around towards the center of it or something and center it as best as you can into this frame. I think that looks good. Don't worry about it being so blurry. It'll look better in game. That's just very pixelated because we're zoomed in. So we're going to go ahead and do the same thing we did with the other stuff. We're going to just take this and we're going to save this as our sprite. So we're going to do, we'll just name this helm _sprite _80 by 60 and /mold. That's what I'm going to name mine. You can name yours however you want. And then we're going to make sure that this is a TGA file. Then we're going to save it. And we're going to export it like that. And that's going to be it for that. So now we've got our icon. We could drag that into here. We no longer need this in our way. So we could go ahead and start setting that up. So now this here, we'll go in here. We'll set this to 0, and we'll set this to 0. And then we'll select our, okay, and this is going to be it right here. And notice that this is not showing up in here. What you could do is drag this slider, and this will adjust that. Now, sometimes the numbers won't change whenever you do this. But, yeah, you want to make sure that this is at 0, 0. Because it's an 80 by 60 image and it'll start up in the top left corner of that image, and it's 80 wide by 60 high, or 80 high by 80 wide by 60 high. So yeah, you want to make sure that this is set up to where it's correct like that. Now we save that, and that's that. Sometimes this will go off and it won't be centered correctly, so if that happens, like I said, drag this and then make sure you just, like, the number won't change, so then you click in here and just type 0, and that's it, and then click somewhere and it'll fix that. And in some extreme cases it'll cause you to crash for whatever reason. Sometimes you'll notice too, after you close the editor and you open it back up, these numbers will be incorrect. They'll be like wildly incorrect, so then you'll just change this back to 80 and this back to 60, and then save, and that'll be done. So if you ever notice that like your image isn't showing up in here after you've closed the editor and opened it back up, that's what you'll do. You'll open this up and you'll make sure that these numbers are 80 and 60. Well, at least for the helmet. Depends on what sprite. If you're doing 100 by 100 sprite, like in my armor here, so like for instance this one, you'll want to make sure that's 100 by 100. But in this case we're doing a helmet, and there's only an 80 by 60 for this, so that's all you need to worry about. Alright, so we've gotten all of our textures, we've gotten our icon set up, so now we could set that up in here, right? So we're going to select our tutorial texture and our tutorial glass texture. Okay, and then we're going to select our version of this, so we're going to just start typing in tut, and then we'll find it here, 80 by 60, there we go, that's our helmet icon. Save, then compile, then save. You do that because if you save first, and then it crashes, at least all this stuff will be saved, so then if you hit compile and it crashes, all this stuff's already saved, and then you could save again. That's just a safety net kind of thing. And try to frequently make sure you hit save all over here. That'll also save any of the stuff that you've added in. If it has a star on it, that means it's not saved. The asterisk in the corner down there, that means it's not been saved. So do a save all, and I'll protect you in case it crashes. Okay, so we've gotten all that set up now. We've got our image, we've got our helmet, we've got our textures. Now we're on to the mod registry portion. So for this, what we're going to do is open the blueprint and open full blueprint editor. So we're going to go over here to our example mod content, and we're going to open the mod registry. If it decides it wants to open, it's being a little sluggish right now. Okay, there we go. It's just being dim. Alright, so we're going to scroll out, scroll over here, and right in here we've got our change wearable skin. We're just going to Control C, go over to our mod registry, and Control V. Click inside this window, Control V. Next, we're going to go over here and we're going to start typing in event, and we'll see event init mod. We'll select that, grab that, boom, slap that in there. Okay. Now we'll save that just in case something crashes, like I said. And then we're going to start setting this up. So, we're going to set this up as, we're just going to start typing in helm, and we'll find our helmet. There's that. And then we're going to find our textures, so we're going to do tut, and we'll find that material. And then over here, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to start typing in helm, and it's going to be the same as that. Okay, so that's one way to do it. But I'm going to show you something here in a second. But yeah, that's how you would set this up by default. But I'm also going to show you something here. So stick around for that. But anyway, that's set up properly now. Now we can move on to our admin menu. So for our admin menu, we're going to need to go into this table here. We're going to open this up. And we're going to... I don't think you could select all. I've never found a way to select all. Maybe there is a way to select all. No, I don't see one. So anyway, go all the way down to the bottom of this and just keep hitting delete until everything is deleted. You want this to be completely clear. There's no way to box select any of this, so you can't like select multiple. I don't know, can you? I don't think you can. Yeah, you can't shift click either. So yeah, it's a little annoying, but you gotta just delete everything out of the table. So I'm gonna have to push this like 100 and sometimes. But that's a little annoying, but it is what it is. And you can't just hold it either. You actually have to keep clicking it, which is a little annoying. So, yeah, we're just going to remove all these entries in here because we don't need any of them. This is for, well, the table that we stole this from. So we don't need none of that stuff. We could drag these out as we like to make them more viewable. Okay, so we're going to add our items in here. So we're going to do tutorial, and this is our helmet, and this is going to be the first skin, so we're just going to leave that. And then we're going to add another one, do the same thing, tutorial, and assault, and then we're going to change this to 1. And there's for 2 skins. We don't have 2 skins yet, but we're going to get there. So boom, save that, close that. And then over here in this admin thing, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to have to go this, delete, this, delete, this, delete, and so on and so forth until everything is cleared out. We don't need any of this crap. So just delete all that. Now there's nothing in there. Make sure that everything is deleted. Alright, now we'll save that, and we can start adding in our stuff now. So what we're going to add in is we're going to add in our tutorial icon for our helmet. Since we only got 1 right now, that's all we need. And then we're going to type in our tutorial table. So this is this tutorial here. And we'll save, compile, save. And there we go. And right here, this is a caption. So this is going to show up in your admin panel. So we could say Dr. Pepper's helmets. And that's that. We could do that. And there we go. So now we save, compile, save. Like I said, that's a safety net just in case it crashes. And now it's set up to where it'll show up in our admin panel. Now we open this up and we got to add in our admin panel. So right here, this is for our admin item panel. And we want to use our tutorial item panel, which we may need to make sure we save all. And this server admin blueprint /tutorial. So we need to make sure that we find that one, this one here, /tutorial. And then we're going to want to add our item into the list. So this is going to be our item, and this is going to be, we're going to type in tut, and we're going to type in our helmet. And this is for all of our helmet data. So when we add extra skins, you don't got to worry about it. It's not going to change anything. Save, compile, save, close that out. Now we're going to add in another skin. So what we're going to do is we're going to select these two, and we're going to copy and paste. And then we'll just rename these. This is already renamed for us. It's /2, so that's fine. It already did that for us. And we're going to do the same with this. We're going to Control C. Oh, whoops, not that. We want the sprite. So we're going to Control C and click Control V. And there we go. Now we've got a copy of that. And I've already got some other stuff just laying around here, so I'm just going to drag that in real quick. So we'll take our moldy, and then we got our moldy helmet. Where's our sprite for that? Right here. I've already got stuff made, so just for the sake of time and making this tutorial shorter, I'm going to go ahead and just drag that stuff in. And then we're going to set up our new material instances. So this one here is going to reference moldy and not mold. And there we go. Hit save. And that's good. And we're going to do the same for this. And we're going to make sure we select the moldy and save. And then for our sprite, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to select the moldy version, which is this one, and then we're going to make sure that this stuff is correct. This has got to be 80 by 60, and boom. So now we save that, and that's all good. And now we're going to save all just to make sure everything saves, and then we're going to go into here and we're going to add our new texture. So we're going to scroll down. We don't need this open, we need this open. We're not changing that texture. We're not changing none of these other textures. We're just going to change 0 and 1. We already changed 0. We're going to work on 1. So now we're going to open this up. We're going to find our moldy texture. Oh, whoops, that's the glass. You don't want the moldy glass. You want the moldy... Here we go. That one. No, not glass. We'll just type in moldy. And then that'll find our material. So here's our material instance for that. Okay. Yeah, brain fart for a second. We'll type in moldy again. And then we'll find our glass. And then we'll do the same thing here. Moldy 80 by 60. Save, compile, save. There we go. Now that's all set up. So now we've got 2 instances of our helmet. So we've got 2 different textures, 2 different versions of basically the same thing, but the point of this is to show that it's going to properly work and everything. Okay, so now we've got all that set up. We should just be able to test and play. Sometimes the first time you play this, the menu doesn't like to show up correctly, so we're going to see. But we'll find out. And it looks like we've got black helmets for some reason. I may have a conflict going on. So let's open our menu here. Yeah, our helmets are showing up incorrectly. So we gotta fix that. Oh, come on with this slow shit. Okay, open this up. So let's see. What do we got going on in here? We've got our helmet. Maybe we got the wrong assault helmet. Which, actually that's another thing. Oh, that's why I don't have it selected. Okay, so it has nothing to do with the blueprints. So we could ignore that. Yeah, anyway. So now let's do this again. Save all everything. And then we're going to run again. Now we'll have our helmets back. Okay. There we go. We didn't change. This is something that we've got to do. We didn't change the glass for our second one, I believe. No, it's correct. Okay. Oh well, we're not worried about that. The point is it's working. So now let's check our admin panel. Not sure why the glass ain't showing up right, but yeah, it's not showing up correctly. But and also you'll notice that our helmet isn't showing up correctly in the menu. So we're gonna have to fix that. But you'll see it's not showing up correctly in the menu. It shows up correctly when you throw it on the ground, but the menu view of it isn't showing properly. So we're gonna have to fix that. But first let's check our admin panel. And we should have our Dr. Pepper's helmets tutorial. And there we go. We could create our helmets now. And you'll see that they show up correctly when I create them. Now, the reason they're not showing up correctly in here, I'll show you. So we'll close out of the editor play menu. We'll let this take forever to load because it always does. I hate that this log keeps showing up and I don't know how to shut it off, so I don't really care, but it's just annoying because it takes forever for it to pop up and it slows things down. So anyway, now I got to show you how to fix that. So remember I was talking about my armor mod earlier. Well, it's kind of irrelevant because I didn't cover this topic. But anyway, I did something in my armor mod that needs to be done here that isn't being done here. So let me explain these nodes real quick. This section here is getting the skins, right? And this section over here is setting skins. Okay, so what we've got going on here is we've got our... This is the skin class that we're targeting. This is the default skin class that we're targeting, right? And over here, we've got this set to the same thing. But if you want your icons to show up, and this only seems to happen if you got more than one. If you only changed one item, then you don't need to do this. But if you changed more than one texture, like we just did, we've got two different variants. What we're going to need to do is, instead of targeting the same class as this, which you shouldn't do anyway because it's kind of dumb. I'll explain why after we do this. We're going to change this to ours, the tutorial version. Okay, and then we'll save, compile, save. So what's going on here with this getting, right? So this is getting a the skin data out of the item class. So this is all of the skin data related to the item class. So what's going on here is when you get the skin data from this class over here, it's getting the default icons and stuff. Because right here, what we're setting is we're telling it the materials to use, right? We're telling it that it's looking for our material instance. And that's setting a material instance, right? But this is only for that single material. So if you want it to be able to access all of them and give you the proper icons in game, you want your version of the blueprint here and the game's version here, so it overwrites those. Okay, you see what I'm saying? Now we'll save, compile, save, and if we go back in our editor and we play, now we'll get the correct icon. So, and this is true for anything you're modding. You're going to want to make sure that you use your version of it so that then the icons show up properly in the menus. So like, see, I throw it on the ground, it's proper. I pick it back up, it shows up properly. You know, whatever. Now, they'll show up properly if you spawn them in. Say you didn't set this up the way I just showed you and whatnot. If you didn't set that up properly and you just set it up with the same class that you targeted over here, then when you spawn it in through the admin list, like I just showed, it'll show up properly. These will show up in your menu correctly because it's pulling the data from this, because you're spawning in an instance of this item, right? So it pulls in its data. But when you are overwriting, so like say you hand this helmet out and they're not an admin, they could keep the helmet as long as it's on the server. But when they log out and log back in, it's going to show the incorrect icon. If it shows it at all, which, you know, that's a whole nother topic. But it'll show the incorrect icon. So that's how you fix that. You make sure that you are using your version of the blueprint here and the game's version here. You want your version to overwrite their version. See what I'm saying? Alright. So, now, as you can see, we play. Everything's all good in the world, right? We got ourselves our helmet. And if we go in the menu, shows up. If we go over here and we go in our admin window and we pull up our new menu, we can just create these, throw them on the ground, exit our admin menu, hit F10, never hit escape when you're in the play menu because you're in Unreal Editor. You got to remember that. So escape will just drag you out of the preview play. So now when we look on the ground, our icons are all proper. Now, you'll notice that one looks bigger than the other. You can get your camera angling proper and all that stuff. Or what you could do is make a map mod and then drag an instance of this into your map. You know, make a bullshit map that's just like a plain, like, green cube or something, you know, that's big enough, you know, probably more of a rectangle, not a cube, but like large enough to where like you could get your camera up to it, get a good picture of it, whatnot, right? And then you set the camera instance. So like, come on, this stupid fucking message is annoying. Alright, so like you'll have your persistent level over here. And what you'll do is like, say you set up a new level. We're not going to go over that because, you know, it's a lot of shit. But you just create a basic level empty, put a plane, you know, drag in like a basic cube, right? Which is kind of like this one here. You see I got a green one over here because that's how I was doing it before. You'll drag in one of these into a level, you'll put a camera in there, and then you'll just look through the camera. Make sure the camera is set to the distance you want it from the object. Place the object in where you want it, and leave that object there. And then each time you want to add a new icon, right, you'll just click on the object and you'll change its texture data to the new textures you added, and then you'll just look through the camera and snap a picture of it, and you'll be at the same distance every time. You see what I'm saying? So go to the camera's perspective and just look at it that way, and you'll get the exact same angle and sizing every time. So that would be the way you'd want to do that. And maybe like get a consistent size with your dragging when you're creating the image. But you know, you like I said, you can be as fancy with it or as like whatever as you want. But this just is to get you working. So this is how you get everything working correctly. As you can see, it's not just as simple as drag in one texture, replace the texture, you know, blah blah blah. Yeah, that'll work if you go in here and you do this shit and you make this the same as this shit, right? Yeah, you could do that and it'll work for a single instance texture. But if you have multiple textures, then you'll get the incorrect icon. But if you're not making icons anyway and you're just replacing one material type, right, for the helmet, and you're not replacing the glass or the secondary textures or making an icon, that part's not going to matter. But the point of the matter is, though, is that if you do that, then you're not doing it properly anyway. So, what's the point doing it at all? Do it the right way, right? So, this is the correct way to do it. And as you've seen, everything works fine. So, that's it for this tutorial. I've covered just about everything that you could need to know about creating the mod from start to finish. We've created textures, we've added textures, we've made multiple instances of the texture, we made our mod registry, we made an admin menu. That's all you need to know. This is, you know, as detailed as it could get. There's tons of shitty tutorials out there, like Loaf's tutorials, that really don't explain shit very well. And a lot of this shit I had to kind of figure out on my own. I had a little help with a couple minor things, but for the most part, I figured all this shit out on my own. And how you do that is you just start looking at shit. So, you know, like, you want to make one of these? Okay, well, you see there's this, there's that goes with it, you know, blah, blah, blah. You know, you figure out where that goes, and you follow the chain up. Well, this has this attached to it, this has that attached to it, so on and so forth. That's how you figure that stuff out. So, you know, like I showed you when we set all this up. You'll do the same thing, but, you know, in a reverse engineering way. So, you know, you'll looking glass, find it, whatever. Looking glass, find it. Looking glass, find it. And do that for everything down the chain. You know, you're going to look at the textures, you're going to look at the sprites, you're going to look at all that stuff. Okay? And that's pretty much how you do it. Just start fucking with shit, and eventually you figure it out. So, yeah. And it's not too hard, because in the game, the files are already here for stuff. So, stuff's already set up, so all you got to do is follow the trail and see how it's set up, and then do the same thing. So, that's all you got to do. But hopefully this guide helped you. It's a lot better than the shitty tutorials I found on YouTube. But that's it for this video. If there's any questions, anything else you want to see, I am working on trying to get flags done and other stuff. And later on, another tutorial I plan on doing is taking all of this stuff we just created here. So like my helmets, I'm going to add it into my armor, because this is my admin armor. I'd like to have all the admin armor stuff in there. So my helmets, my backpacks, my armor, my clothing. Basically all my, well, my admin armor. So I'll probably just do my helmets and my armors. So, you know, I'll do each variant of the vests. I'll do each variant of the helmet. You know, so I can have my own helmets. So on and so forth. And I'll put these into one mod. and we'll structure folders and all that, create new folder, blah blah blah, and you know, move all the stuff into its own designated folders for each item. And then we'll set up the mod registry to accept all that stuff, because it's going to be a lot more than just what we've got going on here. But that'll be probably the next tutorial. So anyway, stay tuned. Hope this helped you, and yeah, get to modding, because it's pretty fun. And if you really want to see your stuff in the game, then this is how you do it the right way. So see you later. Bye bye.